everybody, welcome. We're so tickled to be with you today and to be with our special live guests, Todd Messegee and Lisa Messegee. And you know how excited we are. We've been talking about this for a long time, and we've been sending all kinds of crazy kind of emails like, this is going to be so much fun. So we're really thankful and glad for those of you who are able to be with us live, and for those who might be listening sometime in the future. We love you, and we're grateful that you're joining us too when you can. You're always welcomed and loved and hugged and kissed here at Wife Savers. Okay, I am going, before we really get into the fun stuff, we got to do the technical stuff. And so I've asked Emily, our resident Hallmark movie fan, see, if you don't know, Emily, I should have introduced myself. If you have not met me yet, I am Ramona Zabriskie, author of Wife for Life, The Power to Succeed in Marriage, and the founder of the Wife Savers Education Program, and the co-host with my husband of the Wife Savers podcast. And Emily is on my team Wife Savers. So she knows all about how this works, and she's going to tell us about it. Go for it, Emily.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here today. I've been waiting for this, so we're going to have a lot of fun today. We know we have a lot of our Wife Savers members and friends with us today, and I don't know, Todd and Lisa, you may have some friends with us here today too, so we just want to welcome all of you. And as Ramona said, I think this webinar will be recorded, and it will be available later on to our Wife Savers premium members in your replay section of your membership. If you're interested in learning about how you become a Wife Savers member, go to wifesavers.org and you can find out more there. For those of you who have joined us for Wife Savers live events, this format is really familiar to you. For our premium members, you've probably come to a lab and our kitchen table conversations. So you'll notice that we do have a chat feature here at the bottom. You can click on the chat box. We've already sort of chatted each other a little bit to say hello. We're going to ask you today that you kind of leave the chat box quiet while Ramona is doing the interview and while they're talking, just so that we can be respectful to both our presenters and Ramona. But we'll give you some time at the end, we promise, to chat and ask questions and things like that. If you'll scroll to the bottom of your screen, we also have a Q&A box, and that's going to allow you to send me questions personally. If you have questions throughout the interview, please put them in the Q&A box, and we will give you some time at the end where I'll be feeding Ramona and our presenters some questions that they can answer live. We also are grateful to all of you who submitted questions with your registration, and we'll be pulling from some of those as well at the end of the webinar. So just a couple things to keep an eye on. If you do have a technical issue and you'd like some support, you can put that in the chat box. Just direct it to all panelists, and I'll be able to see that and get to your question or concern. At the conclusion of the webinar, like I said, we'll have some time for chatting with each other in the chat box. We'll have some Q&A. We'll also have an awesome giveaway. I know Ramona's got some prizes in the works that she's going to help give away. So stay with us to the end of the webinar, because it'll be worth it just for the fun of hearing it and for the little giveaway at the end. And I think that that's pretty much everything. Ramona, did I miss anything?
I had to unmute myself. Wouldn't that be fun if we had a little button that we could mute people and unmute them at will? That would be good, especially teenagers. That would be good. All right. Well, thank you. Emily, you did fabulous. I think we all understand. Again, if you have any technical questions during the webinar, you can put them right there in the chat box. The little chat button at the bottom will open up the chat box, and you're welcome to say, hey, this isn't working for me. Use the all panelist selection there in the drop-down menu, and Emily or Lucretia, my other team members helping here today, will jump on and help solve your problem. And then if you have questions that you'd like to ask Todd and Lisa or me, you can put them in the Q&A. So that's another little icon at the bottom of your screen, the Q&A. You type those in and Emily will see them and they'll be all saved up for our Q&A at the end. Okay. I am in the Christmas spirit. I wear my red and my, holiday scarf and my earrings, my Christmas earrings, just because I felt like it. Not just because I'm excited to talk about your brand new Hallmark movie, Holiday for Heroes, but because I've been watching Hallmark movies since they started, was around Halloween or something, Countdown to Christmas started, and they'd kind of just play in the background a lot of the time when I'm in the kitchen or whatever. And it just gets me in the Christmas spirit. And for me, that Christmas spirit is about love, and it's about romance. It's about family. It's about feeling close to family and about prioritizing the most important things in life, because that is always, in my book, there's a moral to every Hallmark movie. And I think it almost always comes back to that, at least from my perception, as what is the most important things in life that you have to always be evaluating and your choices. So I'm excited. To me, that's all Christmas too. So yay, I'm just so excited to be celebrating Christmas. Now, I'm excited to celebrate Christmas with family because Todd and Lisa are actually my family. Todd and I are first cousins on my father's line. And we've only recently really discovered each other, though. And what we found is that we're both creative and kind of animated. Is that the next way to put it? I think you'll find Todd and Lisa's just the same kind of personality. You find them very delightful and engaging, and you can see why they came together to join forces creatively and romantically in creating is what they do for their work, but they create at home. You're creating a family, right? I'm going to unmute you and have you say hello to our wife savers.
Hello.
Hello.
I would say Merry Christmas as well if I can. I know it's not Thanksgiving yet.
We're just going to jump right ahead.
But we're just going to go ahead.
Yeah,
Programming has done that to us.
Exactly.
my daughter-in-law started teaching my grandchildren that Christmas starts in early November and we take a day off for Thanksgiving.
We like the sound of that.
Yes, absolutely. Ramona, thank you so much for having us. And I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who took time out of their schedule to listen to what we have to say. We appreciate it.
Yeah, to all the participants, thanks for coming.
Yes.
Yeah, and they do have, this is the middle of the day for a lot of women. And so it is a little bit of a sacrifice, but I think they've obviously decided it's worth it, and I'm sure it's going to be. So I personally would love to hear, I know the love stories you've written. I'd love to hear your love story, your origin story.
Sure.
I'm sure everyone would.
Do you want to start?
I guess I could start. We'll tag team it.
You do your side and then I'll do my side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
you can correct each other, right?
Right. Yeah. And the story gets, more and more long in the tooth.
It's just part of the editorial process, right?
So Todd and I were both living in Los Angeles. We didn't know each other, of course, at this point. But I had a friend who was a television producer. I was a television producer at the time as well. And we had also kind of met during an organization called Women in Film, which was a really, really great, empowering group of women. We became friends. And we had, I remember it, like a 4-hour coffee together. Wow. And by the end of it, and us learning about each other.
Her name.
Her name is Liz Jaffe.
Oh,
Yeah.
She's a producer.
Thanks to Liz, we were
Yes.
able to get
Yes.
together.
okay.
So
Thank you.
after, yes,
Thank you, Liz. Thank
She's
you, Liz.
amazing. After 4 hours, I think she felt like she knew me pretty well. And she said, are you dating anyone? And I said, not anybody really seriously. And she said, there's this guy that I'm thinking might be a really good fit for you. And in the typical fashion, she said, and if not, he's a really good business contact.
Because that's Los Angeles.
So I said, sure.
That's the LA way. That's the LA.
That's
right.
Yes,
We meet over coffee. So she invited him to see me in a play, which is also kind of typical Hollywood, right? So I was doing a play called Durang Durang by Christopher Durang. And I think that's where I can kind of tag team.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he came to see the play.
So Elizabeth Jaffe comes to me one day. We were working on a film together at the time, and she looks across the table. We're doing script notes, and she looks across the table at me, and she says, "There's someone I want you to meet." And I was like, "Really?" And she says, "I have her headshot." So she.
That's LA too, right?
That's LA too.
Yes.
She picks up, this is just stuff all over production table. There's photographs, there's notes, there's just the worst, best junk food in the world, right? And we're sitting there trying to hash things out, and she just picks up this headshot.
There we go.
There it was.
A few years younger, though.
Right? Yeah. And I said, I'll go to that play. That's not. So we meet, we go to the play. It's in a little tiny theater in Hollywood, and I meet Liz there, and we go in, and she says, okay, you were in a couple different scenes, right? In Durang Durang? Because I think I saw you on stage a couple times.
That might have been that one night when it was.
Yeah. So anyway, I've seen the headshot, and there comes Lisa out on stage. And
with the body intact.
Yes, more than just a flat headshot, right? This is blah, 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 paper thin. No, this is a full-fledged human being out there acting and doing a really good job. And I just immediately had this thought where I was like, what if that actress, that beautiful woman, becomes my wife? Wouldn't that be weird? Because I'm sitting here in the dark, in a theater in Hollywood, and I am watching this woman on stage, and I'm having an almost out-of-body experience thinking, that could be my wife. And I just
say best acting I've ever done.
I watched the show ended, and Liz looked at me and she said, so this is decision time. Do you want to meet her at a restaurant down the street? And I was like, yes.
You're like, want to meet her? I'm trying to decide if I'm going to marry her. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, okay, Todd, don't screw this up, because all the stakes are on the line now. So I went down to a little restaurant called Birds, where they served a lot of chicken, and we sat there probably for like an hour.
Yeah, I can't.
And it was Lisa and I and Liz Jaffe sat at this table, and the three of us, and we were all just talking business for the longest amount of time.
Yeah, very LA.
Very LA. We just business. And some of the other people in the play came over and said hi just to check me out, right? Just the guys to make sure I was okay. And then at the end of the hour, I looked at Lisa and I said, I'd really like to see you again. And she was like, okay.
Yeah. And then
that was a hard sell.
Here's my card. And then I still have it, but Todd wrote his name and his number on a piece of paper. He wrote Todd with his number.
No
and he
card.
wrote no card underneath.
Because I didn't have a personal.
Give you a headshot?
I didn't.
No.
I only had my work business card, and I didn't like handing them out because, well, I won't mention why, but it's okay.
Okay.
It's okay. It just always felt like if I was going to do business, I could hand them out like crazy. But if it was a personal thing, I just want.
Yeah. You gave her a custom design.
I did. And she still has it to this day,
do.
almost 20 years later.
Oh.
But that's how we met. Very Hollywood, and a nice love story ending. I think what it was a year later we got married. So yeah.
Yeah, when you know, at least for us.
We did.
Well, he seemed to know from the row F or whatever in the theater that.
Yeah.
That to me is the most remarkable part of this story.
kind of
Is that you were thinking, wait a minute, she could, because you're not thinking about that about every woman that you.
I don't think I had ever thought that before until that moment.
Yeah.
See, you are a romantic. You really are.
Yeah.
Now, I think for me, in terms of falling in love, it was because, you know, I didn't get a chance to say, oh, there's this guy out in the audience completely in the dark and I'm in love with him. You know, I couldn't have that mutual experience. But for him, he was so nice. And I'm a person about actions, you know, and I remember our third date, I had to cancel, and I was really, really sad that I had to, but about the same time that I met Todd, I acquired my first cat. And this was a long time coming for me because I'm a huge cat lover, just never had one. And my poor kitty at the time was suffering from a respiratory illness from the, you know, Humane Society shelter where I got her. And
so she had to take her cat to the vet.
I had to take my cat to the vet, and I didn't know if my cat was going to live. And the vet was, you know, saying it was going to be a really expensive thing. And you know, it was just very upsetting. So I said, I'm really sorry, Todd, but we're going to not be able to do this date. Maybe we can reschedule. He said,
I was
no.
I was like, why? What do you have to do?
And when I explained to him, he said, no, I'll go with you. So
I'm sorry, but that's Hallmark hero stuff, right?
Yeah. He came with me, and then he held my hand. I was upset. He even offered to help me pay the bill, you know, and I said, that's not necessary. He was so kind. I thought
I had a lot of cats. I figured I could help her out with a little bit of information.
And the stories he has about cats are actually.
I love that you cared that her cat had a cold.
Yes,
exactly.
and that he was willing to do that for me. So, you know, that was to me just at least proving to me that he really at his core was a very, very good person. And that was for me the foundation of very quickly falling in love with this gorgeous man.
Oh, thanks.
You know, but that's pretty much our love story. But yeah,
that's a fact.
I think over a salad, I made a salad some night and we were like, you know what, we're going to get married. I think that's what you said. I'm like, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, you know, that part wasn't necessarily romantic.
Right.
It was just sort of like understood.
We were several weeks into our dating process and she made really great salad. And I was eating the salad. And I was just like, we're going to get married, aren't we? And she was like, yes.
Okay. You know, the old saying, you can't write this stuff.
No,
really, we can't.
We can't because they won't let us. They'd read that and go, that would never happen.
Exactly.
Oh, well.
That would never happen. Oh, my goodness. So I know that a lot of our wife savers question, you know, how real are Hallmark movies? You know, this idea that they're all wrestling with is to bring real love, real romance into their lives. And they go through the wife savers education to learn what love really is. I mean, we talk about loving people, just love your husband or whatever, but we don't really know, what does that mean? What does that look like in the moment, you know? And so we break it down over, you know, big, broad curriculum of what does that really mean to love someone. So I know they have some questions along those lines, and we will get to that, I'm sure. But in your origin story that you just shared, what parts of it would you consider, you know, almost too good to be true? The romantic, the what could be written into a really romantic movie that would excite people? Where do the real life and the fabricated romance, they converge sometimes.
Sure.
Especially in our origin stories. So how do you see that? Do you agree with that?
Do we want to talk about the...
I was going to say, I think there's two questions here, but I think everybody has a meet cute. And I think we can start there. But then I want to go back to the bigger idea of, is a Hallmark movie real life, real love?
Yeah.
Because that's really, really important to discuss. But there is something in all romances, and gosh, I mean, across the board, movies, TV, plays.
It's a storytelling phrase that explains or describes the scene in which the principal characters who are going to fall in love first meet, and that is referred to as a meet cute. So it's that moment where she drops her briefcase in the airport and he picks it up, or he spills his coffee and it all lands on her skirt the day that she has to go for a job interview, and she hates him.
Yeah, where they literally bump into each other, and there's that moment.
There's that moment, and that's the moment where the audience goes, they say the same thing that I said when I was sitting in the theater. It's like, hey, wait a minute, those two are going to end up, right? Yeah. So I was having the meet cute in my brain, but it's a lot better on camera when two characters actually have this cute meeting. So that's how it ended up with the phrase meet cute.
And because it's a movie, you want to try to make the meet cute entertaining, because that's a really major tentpole in stories.
However, we have to manufacture these.
Yes.
The worlds that we build in Hallmark movies, they're fantasies. They're fantasies. And obviously we don't live fantasies. Now, what Lisa and I did to tell our origin stories, we took our stories and we cut out all the dull parts.
Yeah.
And we just gave you the nuggets, right? And that's what we do as writers too. We take a view of real life and we cut out all the boring parts.
That's right. We had a meet cute, didn't we?
Yeah.
We definitely had one.
Sure.
But, there was a lot in between that, again, over the course of time, you start to pare down those stories. You know what's really going to make people laugh, and also what is most memorable at the same time. And it boils down into what that exciting story is.
And what comes out of it, particularly for the Hallmark movies, is you have this boiled down experience that ends up being a fantasy. And they are beautiful, romantic fantasy stories, but it's not real life. As wonderful as we would love to all move to that Hallmark town, and I tell you, we live in a town that is so much like a Hallmark town.
I think we did visually.
It's gorgeous. It's this town called Stanton, Virginia. Hardly anybody's ever heard of it. And you walk down through Stanton, and it looks like a Hallmark movie. And when they decorate it, it's gorgeous. And fortunately, we're in the Shenandoah Valley, so people are really nice here. Even total strangers, you can just strike up a conversation with them. Everybody's really sweet. But it still is real life. Some days it's hard to find a place to park, right? But that's not the case in a movie, in any movie. Have you ever noticed how ironic it is that people just pull up right in front of the place where they're supposed to go? It doesn't happen in real life, but in movies, you want to cut out the dull stuff. So yeah, the romantic movies that we are currently writing are not real. And unfortunately, we wish it was true, but the men in particular are caricatures of human beings. They aren't real people. Sadly.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, just give everybody a minute to.
Yeah. I would actually say that there's elements of real, but it's controlled.
Yep. So
a great example I can give you is before we started the webinar, Todd and I looked at our camera and we said, okay, what are we seeing? We're in the most boring room in our house.
This is the worst room.
It's the beige room, and we can't handle it.
We haven't repainted yet.
Yeah. So we thought, okay, we've got to put some color in here.
Let's show it. There it is.
There's the obligatory green hibiscus plant that wasn't in this room before this webinar.
All the flowers fell off yesterday. So we looked at it, we're like, where's our orange?
Oh, well.
One sadly blossom.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have art directed even our room here. To try to give you a slightly more attractive thing to look at.
I'm wearing jeans and sandals down here because that's a little more cozy for me right now, right? But from here up, I'm trying to do the professional thing.
We look wonderful.
So the greater point that I'm making is a Hallmark movie is exactly what this webinar is right now. It is controlled, right? You make sure that you have a nice presentational face.
We get to the information.
We're being honest, but
Yeah.
it's heightened. It's an element of performance, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's really what you're looking at in Hallmark movies, and that's why they feel so exciting and dynamic, because you are seeing those very controlled moments in a very heightened kind of state.
And it's all crafted to elicit an emotional response.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll let you ask another question.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Well, I think, of course, that we all know that at
Mhm.
heart.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just such a soothing and an exhilarating
Mhm.
thing simultaneously, really. To
Yeah.
immerse yourself in that world of ideals for a period of time.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I believe that it actually has it can have a healthy almost outcome if, instead of comparing your life to that life and looking at the disparity, if it makes you think about your meet cute moment, and
Right.
that brings back that feel good and that real moment of real interest and fascination and love and so forth.
Sure.
And so if it helps you to reflect on your life, your relationship, your guy, and the good things about him, I call that your best imagination. It can bring your best imagination to life and make you feel good about your life. Now, if it makes you want to go into the living room, kick the furniture because it doesn't look like,
Oh.
that's not healthy, obviously.
Right.
So I think understanding the differences and actually the similarities to your life,
Mhm.
because I have total control of my mind. So I could pick out the highlights of my life. I could cut out all the boring parts, my history, or all the sad stuff. I could condense it, look at my life and say, wow, what a wonderful life.
Mhm.
Yep.
I really could. Or I can dwell in the boring and the bad.
Mhm.
And, you know,
You make the choice.
That's right.
you sort
Yeah.
of do make a choice. I believe women have the power to create. So
Yes.
we create our families and our lives. Of course, there's realities we have to deal with in those boring and bad parts. And that's what we do. That's what we do at Wife Savers. Now, you obviously, as you're talking, I can feel your synergy, and how you're both just so on the same page. Is it like that all the time when you're working, where you're like, yeah, that's a great idea, let's use that. And that's a great idea, let's use that. Or is it like, I hate that idea, that's the stupidest idea. How does this work? How do you write together?
Go ahead.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like that.
Well, you may have noticed we're both funny, and having a sense.
Or you think you're funny. You think you're funny. Right.
That's it. We think we're hilarious, and that honestly,
so much fun.
that's what makes it work. Everything we do is based on listening. I have to listen to Lisa. I get to listen to Lisa more accurately. I get to listen to Lisa's ideas. And as she throws me the ball and I catch it, I add a little something to it and throw it back to her. And sometimes we're both talking at the same time. And I've had to become a very pointed listener, because my listening style used to be like, if I go into a restaurant, I could hear conversations all around me. And I've had to kind of change that to just focus on our daughter when she's talking and Lisa when she's talking, and kind of push my ideas into the background for a little while. But we're always having fun with it, because we find creative activities, writing, directing, whatever we're doing, so fun. That's what we live for. So it's a blast. And we argue, but we argue creatively. We don't ever, that's a bad idea. She's never said that to me. And I've never said it to her, because it's not productive. We're not moving the ball down the field, because we have an idea of what the joint objective is.
Okay.
We speak very clearly about what are we working on. We're working on a screenplay. We're working on a play. We're working on a book. We literally are working on all of those. And whatever the project is, it's like, okay, this has this target. That's our objective. Be very objective oriented. And then we just listen to each other. And it goes back and forth like we're playing ping pong. And we use this analogy a lot. Do you want to talk about that one? It's kind of funny.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I'm just rattling. She's going to jump in.
I'm just listening.
She's going to talk about listening in a minute. The ping pong analogy that we use is there's two different ways to play ping pong, which I'm a terrible ping pong player. So whenever I would play against my brothers, who are both older than I am and much more coordinated than I am, they could just kill me in 2 shots playing ping pong competitively. So I would always say, hey, let's play the game where we try to keep the ball in play, right? And you just keep it going, keep it going. You're not doing anything to ace the other player. You're cooperating and moving it back and forth. And that's a really good analogy for how we write stories. We're not trying to ace each other out with a funny joke or a funny story or, hey, it's all mine. It's this cooperative process that after a couple days, a couple weeks, in the case of books, about a year, we end up with the thing that we had set as our objective in the first place. And it has to be a cooperative listening. So I will throw to my partner, and she'll.
Well, I think what you're really hearing Todd say at the core is that it's about communication, and listening is one of the hardest aspects of communication because it is. There are 5 activities involved in listening. We're born with the ability to hear or not hear, but we are not born with the ability to listen. So you have to go through this process in order to do it, and it requires a lot of energy to
focus.
Really, truly listen. Yeah, focus, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I have improved upon over the years, is the ability to just try to, again, calm the quiet in my head as much as I can, or at least put it on a little pause button. So if he says something, I try to pause as much as I can, or I write it down really quickly. I'm like, I'm still with you. I got to write this down.
Writing things down is so helpful.
Yeah.
Before we start one of our business meetings, we both take notes of our ideas before we start.
Wait. You have business meetings?
Well,
yeah,
since we write together.
Do you call them business meetings?
Well, writing meetings, brainstorming.
Okay, like we're getting down to business.
Yes.
We have a house, and connected to the house is our office.
Okay.
So when we go into our office, we're working, and everything that happens up there, well, not everything, but everything. We have a kitchen in our office, so sometimes we aren't actually eating. We're actually working. We're eating snacks. So anyway, we start taking notes before we start brainstorming, so that if there's 3 or 4 really important things we wanted to talk about, we don't forget them in the madness of the brainstorming. So Lisa has her desk. Here, I'll do it like this. So like this is Lisa's desk, and this is my desk, and they're here like this, and Lisa sits here and I sit here. So we're looking across at each other just a little bit, so we can look past our computer screens, so we can see each other's faces. So the screens are here and we can see each other's faces.
Yeah, heart to heart.
Heart to heart, yeah. Okay, so we're across these tables from each other, and we just write down, we're like, okay, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about like Holiday for Heroes, which is on now, and then Christmas Homecoming, which is actually on tonight. When we were working on those, take 5 minutes or 30 seconds, write down the 3 or 4 really important points you want to make, and then we sit back and say, okay, here's what I want to talk about. And it's right there in front of you, so you don't get lost
in the rabbit trail. Yeah.
It's also really clear to have a goal, I think, when you're communicating, whether it's in business or in personal relationships too. It's because it's easy sometimes to lose sight of what the original reason was why we sat down and talked.
Yeah.
Right? So if at the beginning of the meeting, many times we'll say something as silly as, okay, Holiday for Heroes, here we go, right?
And then we'll stare at each other. Neither one of us will say
and then
it.
we'll crack up. Right. And they'll start.
They're like, okay, here it is.
But what we've really done is we have both agreed that is what we're going to be talking about. So we're goal-oriented from the very beginning of our conversation.
Yep.
And we try, I think, pretty well to do that in our home lives as well.
Oh yeah, it spilled over because we didn't start off as writers together.
No.
Oh, that wasn't your intent? Like, let's get married and we'll write together.
Nope.
No.
Oh.
No. Lisa was a television producer.
I was television producing, acting, directing, voiceover.
Yep.
Oh.
I was doing all those because you do a lot in LA many times.
Yeah, and I had a long-term relationship with Disney as an art director, and it was for the theme parks. And then I was piece by piece, as much as I could, getting writing jobs, writing anything, building relationships. And my writing career was very slowly creeping up and taking over more and more of my time when I met Lisa. So I was, finally working on a project that a group of friends were putting together, a little movie that ended up doing pretty well. It was called Brightness, and it starred Eric Idle from Monty Python, and did some festival circuit stuff and ended up on IFC for a couple of years. And when I was working on that with Lisa, that's where the producer, Elizabeth Jaffe, that was the movie we were working on.
Oh.
So I was completely headed toward being a solo independent writer. But then when we met, just so much stuff was starting to collide and work together. It took us a few years, but finally we decided to start pitching TV movie projects together. And it was just one of those things where it's like Lisa had written all these great plays, and I just thought, well, you know what you're doing. Why don't we do one together? And it's just most of the communication stuff came from our relationship as a couple, and we've just used it to then work with our business. But it came from our relationship together first, and then we became writers. So
wow.
So what you see now is after
20 years.
20 years of hard work.
Yeah.
Okay.
With every step of the way.
Right. Okay. So I'm taking lots of notes. This is fabulous stuff. That's fascinating that you develop these communication styles, skills, and dynamics. Probably start and stop a lot of trial and error, right? To figure that out. And then you were able to translate that into a business relationship, creative teamwork, if you will.
Yeah.
Over, though, as you say, a period of time. You got this 20-year partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, writing a story together is a lot like a marriage. When you first start writing a story, it's one of those things where you're very, very polite. It's like, oh no, honey, you write, the first scene. I'll wait, and okay, you write it, and then at some point in that process, the gloves come off.
Yeah.
And you become very invested in it. You say, no, I'll take that. I will do that. I'm going to fix this. What? Fix? No, I didn't mean fix. Right. And then,
I didn't know it was broken.
So, then you have to try to figure out what language to use.
What language? I want my wife savers to hear what she just said. What language? Okay, keep going.
And that many times is trial and error, because you never know what, like, if I press the wrong button with him and he explodes, I go, okay, duly noted.
I don't explode.
That phrase. No. But that phrase, it isn't resonating well, and it's not making him feel creative or empowered or constructive or any of those things. So you
try again.
You try again, and you try different ways to do it. And then over time, using our big honkin' metaphor, right, of writing a story together, you find that it becomes, in a way, not the story, but the process becomes, I don't want to say easier, but more fluid.
Yeah.
Because you start to really get to know how that other person clicks.
We've used you used the word organic.
Yeah.
The process of writing for us and our marriage too has just become more organic over the years, because particularly if I could just talk about the writing, you become more creative the more you do anything. the more we
It's
write.
like a muscle or like pumping a well. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The brain chemistry
Myelin in
called
the brain.
myelin in your brain creates, faster electrical connections between the creative centers in your brain and the verbal centers of your brain. Sometimes you feel like your ideas aren't keeping up with your mouth isn't keeping up with your ideas. As you do it more and more and more and more, you get better at those connections. So we're now at a point where we were talking about the other day how difficult it has now become to teach screenwriting. I was a screenwriting instructor at George Mason University.
Right. You were both professors.
Yes.
Yeah, Lisa taught theater. She ran a
Theater and
department.
communication, which is why I know the 5 activities of listening.
Right.
Okay.
And I taught.
Nice advantage.
Yeah, and I taught screenwriting. Ironically, I actually. Yeah. Okay. So. And we were talking the other day about we now know so much about this process that it has become almost. I'm not going to go so far as to say impossible. It's become extremely challenging to teach it.
Because it's just so natural to you?
We now find the things that we do organically without thinking about it, to drop back and explain the steps that are required to get to that takes more energy to generate the information to talk about the steps, to explain something that we do without thinking. We're both quite skilled when it comes to creating characters and situations to elicit a certain response. If somebody gave us the challenge of, write something that would make people cry, it's like, okay, give us an hour. Okay, or the Christmas movie, it's like, okay, give us 20 minutes, right? Because we've done it enough times that we can just now, in shorthand, hit a couple of points and then add some creative stuff that's unexpected, make it feel a little bit new and better. But to explain the process would take me weeks, but I could do it in an hour.
Yes.
And I think that's art. Art is one of those things that it's cumulative within you. And the older you get, the more you do it, I think the harder it is to really articulate what that is, because it's been growing in you for so many years, if that makes sense.
And that's
Now listen, this is what I teach.
perfect.
It is. Are you hearing this, Lifesavers? You know how I compare. I compare crafting a marriage to a piece of art, and you're painting your masterpiece. And we use the Mona Lisa as one of our, flagship analogies. Basically, it took Leonardo da Vinci 40 years, if you will, to paint the Mona Lisa, because he was learning all the little skills that went into and perfecting and honing himself till he was the master at being able to create the masterpiece.
That's right.
And so I believe, and I compare crafting relationships to being a form of art, if you will, and exactly all the processes that you've just described, including, I was really fascinated by this idea of it becoming so natural, so ingrained, so organic, that it's hard to even explain or put into words. And that's my job. That's what I've tried to do, is explain, go back and break it down, my own knowledge and experience and research and that of other successful women and wives. So just say, well, this is, okay,
Good.
Let's break it down.
If you think about it this way, if love was a science, everyone would be happy. Because, in addition, it's black and white, but it really is art, and art is subjective, and one person's path isn't necessarily going to be the right path for someone else, but there are foundational building blocks that you can use to at least try to keep you, at least on the path and not completely in the forest.
Right. I love the science. I love the science idea. Yeah. The science, you have controlled factors mostly, where here we have our Hallmark movie or our real life, and we wouldn't even be interested in your movie script if it didn't have a bunch of unexpected factors.
Yes.
That do require some artistry or some spontaneity or something out of us that we weren't expecting, correct?
That's it. Yeah.
Let's make that little transition then back into the a Hallmark movie, if you will. And tell us, I'm not a professional scriptwriter. Even I can see, though I totally love and admire great writing, which you do and you have. You're the best. And but there's a formula, isn't there? There's a formula in a Hallmark movie.
Definitely. Hallmark right now, and I'm speaking as an outsider because I'm not in Hallmark. I'm a writer who is contracted for Hallmark. Unfortunately, I get to work with
okay. So actually, I'm more of an expert at Hallmark movies than you, probably.
We all are.
I probably see more.
Right. But what we observe from the outside is that Hallmark obviously has created this incredibly beautiful, comforting, successful brand. And part of that brand is to give you an experience. If you dip in halfway through a movie and you watch the back end of it, and then you watch the next one and the next one and the next one, they want you to have a consistency of the feeling. You want to see one little love story evolving and those characters coming together, and it's over and over and over again. We kind of compare it to, or say it's kind of like different episodes in the same series. And although they're standalone movies, yes, we don't really call it a formula because they do like surprises and they do like things to pop out, but there are definitely Christmas tropes that they want involved in each story, and they give us a lot of freedom to make things the way that we want it to go, as long as it fits into the Hallmark feeling.
Yeah, or house style, you can
the house
say.
style,
The
yeah.
house dressing.
Right, the house.
So they have
a house wine, you know.
Yeah.
It has a certain feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say, the one thing we all know, no one's fooling anyone on this. You know that within the first 10 minutes, you're going to meet two very attractive people, and you know that they're going to kiss at the end of the movie. And that's never going to change. So that formula is locked in place. What's fun about any kind of romance movie is the how.
How's it going to happen?
How are they going to get
How's
together?
it going to unfold?
And that's the journey that you're taking with those characters. And that's what makes them unique and fun and heartwarming and all of those things. The reason why we go to Hallmark to watch those is the how.
But there's, within the how process, there's always a hiccup.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there has to be. And did you notice that 9 times out of 10, it has something to do with communication or miscommunication?
Yes. Yeah. It's like, no, that isn't, that's not what's really happening. You just happened to walk in at the wrong moment. That happened in Holiday for Heroes.
Right? If you just talk to each other, everything would be fine.
It would be fine.
I mean, I totally get it. And I'm watching Holiday for Heroes, and I'm watching the real estate agent put his hand on hers just as he walks into the restaurant. And I'm like, no, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And
not what you think.
Exactly. And when he calls her out on it, she just goes, he's my real estate agent.
Yeah. When she should have said, no, I like you, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Come on.
Yep.
Yes. And I want to talk about Holiday for Heroes for just a minute.
Please do. Because
since we brought it up, I really appreciated that it was this, a lot of Hallmark movies, and I love them, but in the falling in love process, there's a little contention, a little like antagonism, like, we're not suited for each other at all. You get that feeling. And then eventually they start, the Beauty and the Beast kind of phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
But in Holiday for Heroes, it was just so lovely to see that right off the bat, when they finally meet in person after being pen pals, long distance, that they obviously are attracted to each other, that they're obviously well suited, that they obviously find enjoyment in each other's company and all that. And it was just such a pleasant trip to see that, to feel that, just like, so, when the real estate agent mishap comes along, it is very disturbing.
Right.
But
we have to have some conflict in there or it isn't a movie.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I know. I was holding my breath the whole time, like, this is going so good. What's going to happen? No.
Everything's going so well.
Yes.
Well, we felt that there was enough tension with her brother's deployment being extended.
Mhm.
There was enough tension in her ambitions, trying to show her kindness. She kept having obstacles come up.
Yeah.
We didn't need to add another layer of tension into their relationship.
Okay. I think that really was my question. Where I was,
Yeah.
And from the get-go, he wasn't going to stay in that town.
Right.
So there's an inherent conflict. Once that letter drops, the missing letter, you know, okay, well, from the get-go, I don't know how these folks are going to stay together, even though they like each other.
Yeah, the clock's ticking.
I wondered why the letter was missing. Like, okay, what is significant about that? And then it comes out later. It had that information in it. That important information.
Yeah, that's going to push them apart a little bit.
Yeah, it was another way to have him bring up the information that he was interviewing at the military school in Virginia, right? So it was just it was a visual indicator as well as a verbal one to say, oh, he's leaving. So, just to tear at the heartstrings a little bit more. And of course, it came in the form of the letter. So the thing that had been bringing them together at that point was now something that could potentially bring information that would tear them apart.
Right.
So it was just another way of storytelling. So,
okay. I love that. Well, every Hallmark movie, it feels like anyway, has this decision moment. Are we going to sacrifice for each other or continue on our separate lives? Because coming together will require some kind of sacrifice for one or both of us. That seems like it's in every Hallmark movie. What will they choose? What will they choose? And they always choose love in the end. And somebody has to give a little bit. And hopefully there's a way of resolving it. Like he got the job offer from the high school, right? At the right moment. But it was set up to be actually, I thought, very believable because he had been involved with the kids and tutoring and coaching and stuff. So it wasn't like it popped out of nowhere. It was believable.
Yeah. You gotta lay the groundwork so that when it arrives, you go, oh, right. Oh, that.
I also think sometimes in life we find that we think that there are only two choices. It's either this one or this one, or no choice, right? Which, by the way, there's no such thing. We always have a choice. But sometimes it's this third choice that pops up that you go, I had no idea that I could even do that. And I think we liked the idea of that being a core conflict because it's very human.
You wrote that in. I mean, that's great dialogue. You almost quoted the dialogue there when his friend said, well, there may be another choice.
That's right.
You're left hanging like, what? What other choice? What? Goes jogging. They go running off, and you're like, no. What was the other?
The Tom character, who's named after my brother, by the way.
Oh,
yeah. What she said.
Yeah. I love that. So here's two things that I'd like to take away for my life. Is that there, as you say, there's maybe other choices here. You may be thinking too black and white, or, there's other opportunities that you get a little more creative about this. And I think that serves us well as women, especially in mothering. We think, well, what I'm doing isn't working. Okay, if I step back and get a little creative about this, there may be another option for how I approach this discipline problem or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that really serves us well. So we've got the options thing. And what a point I was trying to make earlier is the sacrifice thing. Love does require us some time to modify our agenda to more closely align just because we love someone or we want to be with someone.
Right. So that is one of those elements. I was saying earlier that Hallmark movies, these romances are fantasies. But that is one of those moments that is so real that when the characters finally go through the adventure that they go through, the decision to be together usually entails one of them makes some kind of sacrifice. That's real. And I think that's why it just hits with an impact in every single one of these movies. that when they make that decision and you're watching, you're like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And they make that decision. You go, I've had to do that.
Yes.
Everybody has that personal connection to, and whether it's about love or something else, I mean, people move all around the country for work. People make decisions about all kinds of things, parents, siblings, et cetera, et cetera. There's that decision moment where it's like, here's how life was up until that second.
Yes.
And it often comes with a sacrifice. So you're absolutely right. And we do build the stories to hit that emotional point. Like I was saying earlier, they're all crafted to hit a certain emotional reaction. You manipulate things a little bit. Sounds mean, but that's the truth when you're building a story. But yeah, if that moment doesn't hit as being real, where everybody watching can connect to it, we just keep writing it until we get it.
Wow, interesting. How do you know when you've got it?
It makes us cry.
It makes you cry.
It hits you right here in the chest.
Yeah, there's nothing funnier to see us reading our own work and going, and then, you hand the paper to the other person.
Because we read all this stuff out loud, all of our scripts.
And we always say we're so obnoxious. We're crying over our own material. This is just obnoxious.
We read it, chronologically, page 1 to page 107.
Yeah,
We just
out
go
loud.
out loud. We act the whole thing, and you get to that point right around page 80, and you go. And it's like, that works.
Yeah,
Turn it
that's
in.
right.
Send it.
That's right.
Email it. It's ready. Because if you don't hit that, you're like, I'm not feeling it. It's like, start over.
Because probably the problem is at the beginning.
Problem's not there. It's 10, 15, 20 pages earlier.
Yeah. Okay. You go, we've got to, that's the moment. We've got to keep it. So whatever we have to do to make it hit, we're going to make it hit. Oh,
that's right.
Yeah.
Goodness.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That personally is the most glorious thing, your revelation to me today. That is absolutely fabulous. Okay. So I have just a couple more questions if you don't mind staying with us. We're coming up on an hour, but I just am not going to lose this opportunity.
We're fine. We're good.
I
hope our wife savers will stay with us for just a few.
We apologize at this point.
Personal letter to each one of you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right.
No, my wife savers, they just love this kind of stuff. So,
okay, great.
So now you talked about going to do your business. You have your office, you have, your setting, you have your process and everything that you developed over a long period of time. But how do you balance it? When do you say, I'm done, work's over? So not only do you balance, I know that your work is actually fun, so it isn't, but it's got to be intellectually and maybe even a little physically exhausting and draining.
Yes.
So how do you keep things in balance? And especially when you're a man, Lisa's a woman, and maybe you have different tempos or, how do you respect that aspect too of each other? And not just there's something fun going on.
Every night at about 6 o'clock, I go, I'm done.
And I say, I got to go make dinner.
That's about it.
But Evie's bus schedule helps a lot.
That's true.
I know that sounds really silly.
Yeah.
But you get into a certain groove and you say, you know what? The home life kicks in. Okay. Daughter's home, we need to turn it off and we need to be a family. And I think that's one of those, it's not a sacrifice because that's the wrong word, but it's the change that happens in your relationship when you make those big decisions like you have a child.
Right.
Right? And you say, okay, well, this we have to compartmentalize a little bit. This part is over, and now let's put the new hat on, the mom hat, and let's go ahead and be together as a family. And sometimes the lines blur, and our daughter's wonderful that way because, we're in the middle of dinner and we go, you know what we should do in that section?
Yes, that was my next question because you can't always control the creative thing.
You can't, it's really hard to shut off, but you have to at least try to I guess, function on.
Yeah, because we'll be talking about how things were at school that day and whatever Evie's doing, and our daughter's name is Evie. So if you hear me say Evie, that's what I'm referring to. Evangeline. Yeah. Right. So Evangeline.
Thanks for the exposition there.
Right. Sorry, because sometimes when I just throw the word Evie into conversations, people are like, "What did he just say?" So anyway, she gets on the bus at 7:30. She gets home at 3:30, and that block of time is usually dedicated to writing. Mm-hmm. And then when she gets off the bus, we have about a 1 hour, we call it her cocktail hour.
Without the cocktail.
With no cocktail, because she's 12. So she gets to, kind of free range. She goes upstairs into her room and plays with her dolls and stuff. Sometimes she's down here and watches some videos. And that's our flex time to shift between writing to getting back into home. And then when she's done with that, we all come down, and because our offices are over our garage. Okay. So it's a nice studio above the garage. And then we come down here, and in the more attractive part of the house,
we get past this house.
We get past the brace room. and it's her schedule has become our schedule, and that kind of flow goes with it. But yes, there are times when Lisa and I, since writers and artists, I believe, always have it in the back of their head, kind of cranking around. And we'll be having dinner, and we'll just say to Evie, one quick thing. And then I turn to Lisa, and I'll say, there in the second act when this happens, let's just delay that for a minute. And she's like, write that down. So how obnoxious is this? We eat dinner with notebooks at the end of the dining room table, right?
Just in case.
Just in case. And there's always pens around because we're writers, so you can just grab a fistful of them anywhere you go. And we just write stuff down, and then we snap back into parent mode.
But our daughter's now at an age where she goes, "Oh, that's good. That's make it worse, right?" And we're like, "Yeah,
that's right.
That's it. That's the
right.
Make it worse moment."
That's right.
So
she knows the language.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, one of her favorite is when we're talking about a character, she'll say, "Is that a white-faced clown or a red-nosed clown?" And we'll say, "Oh, that's definitely a white-faced clown." She's like, "Got it."
That's so funny. I knew my kids that were being exposed to way too many rehearsals and stuff like that when we were playing games with friends one night, and I stepped out of the room to go to the bathroom. One of my kids comes running to me to tell me it's my turn at the board, but instead of saying it's your turn, they said, "Mom, you're on! You're on!" Oh, I'm supposed to be on stage. All right. Anyway, well, this is absolutely delightful, and I could ask a million more questions, but I think I'd better turn it over to our participants, our wife savers, see what kind of questions. And ladies, we won't be able to get to every question, I'm sure, but I'm going to depend on Emily, who I'll ask to come on screen now, to feed us those questions. And she may condense some. She may have to pick and choose because of our time. But we trust you to do that, Emily. And I'll get the questions, and so will the Messegees afterwards. And we'll do our best maybe to follow up. But we'll do what we can right now. Okay?
Great. We really appreciate the questions that were submitted with your registration. So thank you for sending those to our wife savers. And the Q&A box is still available if you want to submit questions now, but I do have quite a few questions. So Todd, you kind of hinted that you named a character after your brother.
Sure.
Do you guys generally use true stories, life experience, your personal life experience? Do you weave that into your writing that you do? Or do you do anything like based on a true story?
We don't tend to, do like book adaptations or article adaptations. Most of it is generated from this lovely phrase called "what if." So what if this were to happen with this character? And so many times it'll start, I would say, with our imaginations. Mm-hmm. But then as we start to develop the story, I might say to Todd, I remember 10 years ago, I had this experience, and I'll share that experience. Or he'll say, yeah, I remember when I was in high school, this happened to me. And we go, oh, okay, that's something that we can use that's real and honest and works for the character.
Right.
So that's what I would say about it.
I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
As far as the names go, we're constantly having to generate names that fit the characters, and they have to fit the characters to us as best as possible. But we use baby name books. That's really, really helpful. Sometimes we'll go online just, with the baby name online, and then also Facebook. And my high school yearbook for last names has been immensely helpful. We used to use Los Angeles street names, but now we don't do that anymore.
We ran out.
Yeah. so
I love the main character names in Holiday for Heroes. And Audrey, I wrote them down. Audrey, Matt, Jade. I love those names.
Yeah. We worked with a Jade who was so amazing. We've always loved her name.
She's great.
Yeah. And she's an actress here in DC, and we're like, okay, we're going to name her Jade.
We're going to call her Jade.
Yeah.
Every now and then, it's just one of those things to make it a little more personal to us. We'll just take a name of somebody we know really well, work, family, whatever, and name the character after them. And it doesn't tend to be that person's character. It's just we kind of want to throw the name in just so we get to say, I named it after my brother, or that was a friend of ours. We used her last name for a character in Holiday for Heroes. So it was on his little nameplate, Yoder, Commandant Yoder, named after a friend of ours.
But it's a real name.
It's a real name.
And it's nice to be able to fit those in there, because I think sometimes, I don't know whether it's writers or sometimes it's executives tend to err on the side of a little more generic perhaps with names. And we try to do a mix of things and also make sure that the actors can say the name fairly easily.
Right.
Because that also makes a really big difference.
So we would never name anybody Messegee because they would
mess it up. Or Nani,
Right, sure.
But
so, it's all right.
That's okay.
It's okay.
Okay, I've messed it up. I've been saying nanny all this time. Do people do that?
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
I call her that all the time.
Yeah. You are one of hundreds and hundreds and maybe even thousands in my life.
It's another way to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I do.
Sister in Hawaiian. I found that out yesterday.
Oh.
But it's Italian. Nani. Like, hey, Nani.
Oh, okay. Now I got it. Hey, Nani. I got it.
No, it's
of course, I have Messegee down.
You practiced that one.
I practiced that. For everybody who doesn't know, that is my maiden name, Messegee. Do you do it this way? Messegee?
Yes.
Okay.
Ooh, I like that.
That's how I said people, how do you spell that? Okay. All right, Emily, give us another one.
Yeah, sure. So I'm trying to picture myself if I were to have my husband here all day working, because there are times he works
Emily,
from home.
is this your question or someone else's question?
It's my question.
Sorry, everybody. She hasn't even got to your question.
I'm just trying to picture myself having my husband home all day, then doing work life, you two, and then doing family life, and then doing maybe your, stuff with community or whatever else you do. And it's all like the two of you. So what is that like? I love that. And I think there are some in our audience who want that. I mean, there are people who asked about, how do you work together? How do you spend all this time together? I just want to step into that and what that feels like. And do you guys ever feel like you want to break from each other, or do you just really love it and eat it up all the time?
Be very careful how you answer, Todd.
Lisa is my best friend in addition to being all of the other things we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And I love listening to her. I love talking to her. I love making her laugh. That's one of my favorite occupations.
We spend 3/4 of our lives making people laugh. I think Todd spends more than that.
Well, I like it.
But that's we found ways to be, I think, really right for each other in all situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know if when we met, it was that way. We really clicked.
Oh yeah.
But I think over the years, we've also, I never made a conscious choice to say, I want to be with you at all times, but it just works.
Yeah. But we also have a huge yard. that I have to mow.
That's true.
So I'm gone at least once an hour or 4 every other week. So it's 5 acres of grass. Who would think to have that? That's insane. We should have a cow. So anyway, I'm kidding. I just love hanging out with Lisa. I feel lucky to be able to spend time with her. I know not everybody's that way. They kind of need a break from their spouse, and I totally respect that.
Yeah. It's probably just unique to us. I think that's why I wish I could answer the question in a way to say these are the magic things you do.
But I think we're more irregular in that, because I think most people do stay healthier with their relationships if they get a break, and then when they come back, it's kind of new again and exciting. Mm-hmm. But we're so linked on so many different ways. But it's not. I don't think it's that's just how most people are.
Well, we love sensing that you're in this rhythm together, and that it makes you very, very compatible, and that just we can feel it even through the.
I think it's being artists and finding a way to work together as artists, because as we said, we didn't always do that.
No.
And even when you were painting and I was not painting, I think that was harder. Yeah, Stanislavski back there.
That's one of mine.
Really?
You should see his robot paintings. Those are awesome.
Wow.
Another day.
That's another thing.
Yeah, that's another life, that art direction thing.
But I would say, because we do art together, that's soul fulfillment for us. Sometimes people choose to go to church, temple, synagogue together, or they choose to exercise together, or they find some kind of like spiritual, if I can use that word, spiritual way to bond. And if that spirituality, whatever that is something that becomes like a full-time thing for them, I think it's easier to say that you're together for longer. But if you don't have that particular thing, I think you do need the break, and then you come back together. You find the common bond. Right. It may not be spiritual. It might be something else. Right?
But to be able to create together is just so exciting.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, if you
that's the best way I can answer it, Emily.
If you can also look at something you do in your life that you could maybe shift your mindset a little bit to think of as more creative. Even parenting is that way. It's like for to either let's get creative about this together. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're creating a life, really, for a child. I don't know. I'm just trying to extrapolate the principle out that it can apply to all of us in some way. On the Wife Savers podcast, we did do an episode for anyone this is one of the things that they're concerned about, that was about compatibility, in the sense of how do we find things that we both like to do together, kind of idea. And we talked about circles. There's the stuff that he likes, and it's her stuff she likes, and what can you do that just so the circles just even barely cross, whether it's he watches his baseball games, or he comes with her to do this or whatever. But if all that doesn't work, we talk about creating a whole new circle.
Yeah, that's right. I was
finding a whole new endeavor that neither of you have ever done before.
Yeah.
That you now learn to do together. So
write a book.
There you go. Yeah.
That is huge.
Also, it's the willingness to try. I think both sides do need to have the common goal of saying, I want to find something to do together. And if you start there, then I think the rest, I don't want to say is easy, but if you just communicate, you brainstorm, and eventually you find something, you hang on to that thing and you grow it like a little seed, right? And then maybe it starts to go into other realms too.
So it's the common objective.
Yes, common objective.
Yes. And you get to create things from scratch all the way to fruition over and over again. And that's very fulfilling too.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Emily, give us another one.
I feel like we may have some screenwriter hopefuls here. So since you guys are the perfect audience, or the perfect experts to answer this, how does one get started as a screenwriter? What do you do? Do they need to go to LA? Do they need to?
Yes, screenwriting teacher right here. So go ahead.
Okay, brass tacks. Here it is. in Hollywood, they don't hire screenwriters because they write well. They hire screenwriters because there's a relationship that's been built. And producers have to trust the writer to go through a process, because just getting a script, you could just, okay, somebody sends me a script. Here's a script. I don't know this person. It might be brilliant. I might read it and go, wow. But here's what I don't know. I don't know if they can take notes. I don't know if they can rewrite it. I don't know if they're going to have the emotional stamina to go through the process to turn this into this. Because we can sell this. This might have been brilliant, but we can't get it made unless it looks like this.
And is it their only idea?
And is that their only idea?
Sometimes for an agent particularly, they want to have
if I say,
a relationship.
Could you give me 16 of these? And they go, wait, I've got this. Like, no. So how do you get started as a screenwriter? I will now answer the question based on that backstory. You got to build relationships with people who buy screenplays. And that can only be done in an industry hotspot where people make movies or television, because we work in television, even though we write screenplays. We love television. And that our career is based on the fact that we built dozens of relationships over the course of decades. So again, we're at an end point here talking about the fact that we have movies on the Hallmark Channel. What you don't see is all of the effort, the Leonardo
stuff, right?
The Leonardo.
The time that Leonardo spent learning how to draw, and people are like, "Oh wow, look at the Mona Lisa." Okay, what you don't really see is the fact that when he was 9 years old, he didn't know how to draw. He had to learn how to draw, then learn how to paint, then learn how to prepare a panel because he messed it up a couple times, right? And then finally he got to the point after decades of work where he could produce a masterpiece. But we all get focused on the masterpiece. Okay, every screenwriter has to go through that same process. And I wish I could give my students a shortcut and say, hey, all you gotta do is make an envelope and hand it to some. It doesn't work that way. I wish it did. But you've gotta be this flexible thinker who's able to work over the course of decades building relationships with people who buy screenplays.
Wow.
That's the answer.
And I wish there was better news than that.
Boy, I wish there was better news than that.
But if you're listening to this and you're not disheartened, but you're actually excited and stimulated by that idea, then I think that's the first step.
Yeah.
Is saying, I accept that challenge and this is something I want to do. And, if you have a community around you of like-minded people, you can start already creating art.
Because you don't have to just sell to Hollywood these days.
Yeah.
People can make media content completely independently of Hollywood, and a lot of those people end up selling that content further down the road. So it isn't.
That's true.
We don't all have to do kind of what Lisa and I do, because we're members of the Writers Guild of America. We're members of Writers Guild of Canada. We've built this package. Not everybody has to do that.
Yeah. Here's what's really cool. Yesterday,
Oh yeah.
we're playing with our Xfinity. We're like, ooh, this is really cool. You just say
talking
something.
to it.
Wow, newfangled technology. And so I went, Thurston. And that was a web series that Todd and I acted in a few years ago. And
It popped up on Amazon Prime.
It won some
We're like,
awards, but nobody's really, like Hollywood hasn't seen it per se.
but it's a terrific little show.
Yeah, and there it was. And we're like, well, there's Todd on TV. There's Lisa on our TV.
There it was. There was weird.
Now, that's that. And that's
Right. There's so many other venues now for getting the work.
right.
Yeah.
Now, we were working with people who are professional people, but it was not anything that was sanctioned
or paid for
by any kind of Hollywood money, any kind of Hollywood producer. But that art was created. So 20 years ago, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation with you.
Nope. But the technology now supports much more independent production. So if somebody has a passion for it, the answer is go do it.
Yeah.
and just keep doing it.
Right.
You don't have to just sell to Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah, and there is no shortcut, unfortunately. In
But no, if you want to play in Hollywood, there's that path and that path only. Building relationships.
I love that you've given us a little dose of reality, but you acknowledge that there may be somebody here who that actually inspires. Like,
absolutely.
I can do that, because that's how I was. Totally. I remember writing class I went to. Well, it was actually a soup, from A to Z kind of thing of how to get published. And the big New York agent she's like Obama's agent, and she gives us the reality. She said, I get 80,000 inquiries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right? A year. And she says, and of those, this many I ask for, and she boils it down until she actually only works with 8 of the 80,000. Everyone went out of there just like,
yeah.
No. And I walked out of there like, I'm one of the 8.
There you go.
That's it.
We always say, why not us?
Why not us?
And on that, I think that molecular brain level, you have to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's the secret to it, is saying, you know what, but you need to put the time in.
Yeah.
And know that could be a very, very long marathon. But if that's something you really want to do, then go for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Very inspiring. Emily, do you have another one? Maybe 2 more, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. So do you guys think we'll ever see a Hallmark movie that involves the life story of married people? Or do we always get to see the couples meeting? One of our viewers wants to know, what about a Hallmark movie about married people?
Right. Because we're awesome. Married people are awesome.
Married people are awesome. It's a really great question. And the Hallmark brand right now is focusing almost exclusively on people falling in love. That's what they're doing right now. So that's what they're going to continue to do, because it's really successful. And we applaud their success. And those are the kind of movies they want to tell. So the stories about married people, those tend to be secondary characters. So the answer right now is no. They're not gonna, they wouldn't make a movie about right now.
But never say never.
But never say never, because the storytelling style will always evolve and change, and that's a possibility. But right now it's about couples meeting each other and falling in love.
And fundamentally, when you think of a romance novel, you usually want the beginning, the origin, as we keep saying, the beginning part of that story of how did they get together, and then you end with happily ever after.
It's
right?
Electric.
Yeah, and what in a way marriage is it picks up after happily ever after, and that it's its own story. But Hallmark is really structured with the classic romance in mind.
Right.
And there are a lot of Hallmark movies actually that have parents who have long-term, mature marriages that are exemplary.
Oh, that too,
Yep.
Involved. They're always young adults in the falling in love story part, usually.
Right.
But often one or the other will have a set of parents who are.
Oh, yeah. And this only really goes for the standalone movies. The mysteries, they do other things. The series, they do other things. But we just right now are writing the standalone movie, the movie of the week style movies. Yeah.
Now, Holiday for Heroes, or was it not originally even a Christmas movie? Was that right?
That one has always been a Christmas movie, but Christmas Homecoming,
Homecoming.
Yeah.
Right, which airs tonight, by the way.
Okay, yes, I can't wait.
That one.
I've seen it 7 or 8 times, but I'll watch it again.
You don't need to see it again, but anybody who hasn't.
Oh, and it's on DVD now. That's the other thing.
It's on
Shameless
DVD.
self-promotion.
That's right.
But that was originally called Welcome Home Warrior.
Yeah.
And when we worked on it for a considerable length of time, it was just a straight military drama. And not even a light military drama. I mean, it was for Hallmark.
It's a tearjerker.
It was,
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We, as I recall, we finished our first draft, And one of the executives said, okay, this is really, really great, but we're wondering if you could make this into a Christmas movie, and how would you do it?
And we thought about it for a couple hours.
And that's all we had was a couple hours, because we were going to go into that meeting.
Yeah, the meeting was already scheduled, and so we heard about it in the morning, and we always say, oh, thank goodness we live on the East Coast, because Hollywood time, Pacific time, right? We have a little bit more wiggle room. So we're up and we're talking, and Evie's off to school, and we're just like, okay, make it into a Christmas movie. Make it into. So we just took a couple of the components of the drama, and we said, okay, we can shift this, and we then pitched that idea to the executive, and they said, okay, make it into a Christmas movie.
Yes, in one draft.
In one draft, and so the title, from Welcome Home Warrior to Christmas Homecoming, and it became the movie that people can watch tonight.
So why? Yes, tonight. So why the military aspect in both of those films?
Hallmark wants to have a presence of stories that speak to veterans families, and people
and active military.
Military, because no one has said this out loud, but I personally believe they think that those are underserved categories of storytelling and audience,
and that they're good stories.
And they're good.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's ripe, if you will, for very honest and real situations, even though we're still dealing with the fantasy elements.
Right. Sure.
Right.
They want that as a component of not only their Veterans Day movies, but also their Christmas movies, their Christmas in July movies. For July 4th, they show the military-themed Christmas movies at those times.
We've written 2 now, and I think
with that military.
For Holiday for Heroes, in addition to having military themes, it also is a movie about kindness.
Oh yeah,
and we thought, even if people can't really relate to some of the military aspects, or they may not have that kind of landscape in their lives, right? They can at least key into the idea of a simple act of kindness can start to really create this rolling ball of kindness all around and extend into the community.
Right, kind of a pay it forward idea.
Yeah. I remember when we first started thinking about it, we didn't think of it as a military movie. We thought first we want to do a project about kindness.
Yep.
Oh.
And then we said, well, let's wrap it into the military themes, because I think that the idea of sacrifice is really
right. It's built in. Yeah.
It's built in.
You know what else is built in into anything military themed is you just assume you're dealing with strong men and strong women.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have to be, right? So that's
and
very
families are also very strong.
Right. And commitment. The commitment's going to be a theme.
Yeah.
So
So in a way, kind of like pre-built drama, I guess. And that sounds pretty clinical, but there's a lot there.
Okay.
It's a very rich category, and we're very pleased that Hallmark
and
continues
Todd
to let
has
us write
family in the military.
Oh, yeah.
I've also had family in the military as well, so
yeah, we have
relatives.
connections.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one more plug for that. Christmas Homecoming tonight on Hallmark Movies and Mysteries. And if you don't know Hallmark, and I'm sure you do, because you're here, you'll see the same movies playing repeatedly. So if you miss it tonight, you can watch it again later. Same thing with Holiday for Heroes. I saw it on the premiere night, but it was on again last night. It'll be
14 more times. So
before the end of the year.
You have time.
All right. Well, just in case someone just loves it so much they want to watch it forever and ever, we're going to give away now a DVD of Christmas Homecoming. All right.
Cool.
So the team behind the scenes, thank you, Lucretia, has used random.org, and we've taken everybody's name here that's made it here to the end, and we've plugged it in to random.org, and we came up with a number. And the winner of the DVD of Christmas Homecoming, which you're just going to love now that you know Todd and Lisa more than ever, is Jana Porter.
Yay!
Yay, Jana! You can type
Congratulations.
you can type if you want to, Jana, into the chat box. So congratulations, Jana. And you need to write to Emily at ramonazabriskie.com so that we know how to reach you, how to mail you that DVD. All right. We're also going to give away now another thing. We're going to give away, if you've been watching, I mean, if you ever go to the Hallmark Channel website, you see they have really cool things. Sometimes you'll see it on somebody showing off their thing on Instagram or something. But my favorite thing there are the socks. And I want my own pair, but I'm going to give away a pair right now. And they're called, what are they called? I'm looking for it. They're the cutest little things. But you put on these socks, and on the bottom of them, it says something like, "Leave me alone, I'm watching my Hallmark movie." You put them, because you got to do that. So you get a pair of Hallmark, it says Hallmark Channel is on. That's what it says. Okay. And they're Christmas themed and everything. So I think that's really fun. So the winner of the socks is Elizabeth Nuxall. Elizabeth, yay! You won your Hallmark socks.
Cozy at Christmas.
Cozy. Congratulations.
So again, look in the chat box there to get the address to get Emily because I can't digitize socks. So I'm going to have to actually put them in the mail. Yes, or have Hallmark put them in the mail. I want to do one more giveaway, and this is by far the most valuable in terms of, sheer dollars and in the impact on your life and your marriage. As you know, I hope, Dale and I have been working for over a year now on our new course, Conversations on Physical Intimacy for Wives and Their Husbands. And Emily is almost as excited about it as she is to watch Hallmark movies.
I just need you to make a t-shirt, Ramona, and I'll wear it.
That says Conversations on Physical Intimacy. Really? Okay.
Okay, not really, but I would be that excited.
I'm really sorry that it's taken a whole year, but it's very substantial. It's very high quality, thoroughly researched, and extremely entertaining, right? You're going to love it. Not only are you going to love it, your husband is going to love it. And this isn't don't have to take my word for it. We pulled together a beta group of wives and their husbands who have worked the course, and we've gotten all their feedback. You will see soon in communications that you'll get from me some of their feedback. But the husbands are our biggest fans. Does that surprise you, Todd?
No.
They love it. And the wives have loved it. And it has a huge impact on the marriages, just as we hoped that it would. So that's a very valuable gift. I would like everyone to know about it. So let me give you an opportunity to go to wifesavers.org/conversations today. If you do that today and you put your name in there, you will be notified tomorrow before anyone else, because it is going to launch tomorrow. And you'll get a code for 50% discount. Did you hear me? 50%. That's one half. It will never, ever, we'll never be able to do that again. So you have to move on this if you haven't already. You need to go to wifesavers.org/conversations. Put your name and your email in there, and tomorrow morning there will be an email with a code for 50% off of that course. So you'll also be able tomorrow to learn all about it. You'll get all your questions answered, all your worries, all your concerns, all your curiosities will be answered tomorrow at the website with that information at wifesavers.org/conversations. But today it's the place to go put your name in. We're going to give away now one of those courses. So for absolutely free. And let's see, who is our lucky wife savers? Ready for this? Todd, give us a drum roll or something.
Yeah, really.
There we go. It's Tamara Passy. Hey, Tamara! I hope that it does amazing things. Well, I know it's going to for you and your husband and your relationship as a whole. All right, everybody. I am so thankful that I personally have had this amazing opportunity. I'm so thankful that I share grandparents with Todd. And we're going to have so much fun now being friends now that we've gotten to know each other so much better. And boy, did you do a good job choosing your actress from afar.
No kidding.
Thanks.
Wow.
That was quite a play.
Well, I have to admit, your life and your marriage seem very idyllic from our point of view here, but we all know how much effort you've put into it, into developing your own selves, maturing yourselves as two individuals, so that you're able to now merge your lives with love and accommodation and kindness, right? All the things that you talked about. So thank you. Do you have one last word of wisdom for us? Bumper sticker something?
Well, if you came to the webinar for advice about writing, I would just say keep writing. That would be a big one.
And if you came to hear more about relationships, everything that Ramona is saying, we're kind of living it. Mm-hmm. So keep listening.
Yes.
She's got it.
Keep listening. Well, I never used we have our own glossary at Lifesavers, and we call what you do dream weaving.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. And you have two dreams, two individuals, and they're being woven together. There's a lot of components to it, but you are the epitome of it. So thank you. We wish you the greatest success in your family life and in your professional work, and we'll all be watching you closely. And you've just developed the Todd and Lisa fan club.
Okay, good.
That's us. Emily is now officially the president.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful
Thanks,
day.
everyone, for watching our movies. We really appreciate it.
We do. Thanks so much.
Watch the movies and tell all your friends, right?
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.